And it's my honor to introduce this morning Reverend Kay to speak to you about the simplicity of prayer, or prayer made simple.
Good morning. How is everybody today? Nice and bright and sunny? Do I hear anything? Well, I am. So once there was a little girl, and she lived in the early 1950s, and if you can imagine, back then the TVs were black and white. We didn't have color yet. And her bedroom was arranged just so she could see the TV set from her bed and hear what was going on. Now, if you were around at that time, you know that they had several shows about the children who were starving in one place or another. And they it was a full-blown show, kind of like our info commercials now. But it affected this little girl very, very deeply. And so what she did was she felt that she had so much to eat and felt so sorry for these children that she took to imagining that her ceiling would open up and she would take the food from her dinners and she would carry it out of the ceiling to the children. And she would see the children and their parents smiling as they received the gifts of this food. Now that's one story. Another little story is there was a young man who was, 6th, 7th grade, and he was being picked on because he was very, very small for his age. And as you can imagine, most of the time, if you're young and you're small, you get picked on, but he was very intelligent. And this young man, the kids were putting him in trash cans, upside down in the trash can. And he decided he didn't want that anymore, but he wasn't quite sure what to do. He knew that he couldn't just run to mom. He couldn't just run to some authority because that didn't help. It didn't make anything any better. In fact, sometimes it just made it worse. But he was extremely smart. And so he started, in a sly way, making jokes about his own size, which was easy because he was small, if you think I am. And he also started offering to help the other kids in their schoolwork. And because he could do it. He was quite a few grades above where he was actually. So he started helping them with their schoolwork, and pretty soon these kids were coming to him and they weren't putting him in the trash can anymore. They were honoring him. And they enjoyed having him around. Now the last story. There was a young man, he was a teenager, and he had just come from elementary school, moving into the junior high school, and he was alone. He didn't recognize anybody there, and in his old school, he had been the basketball star. And so he was really looking forward to being in basketball when he got there, and he went and he tried out, but they didn't pick him. And he was really down. He had to take the bus, the city bus every day, to school and back again. And the city bus was about 3 blocks or so from his house when he came home. Now, one day he's sitting there, and he does have one friend, but he's down, and he's, poor me, I didn't make the basketball team, and who am I without basketball? That's what I did. What am I going to do now? And this woman gets on the city bus, and she's very pregnant. She's not long before she's going to have this child. And she gets on, and the bus driver says, "Where are your shoes?" And she says, "Well, I don't have any, but I'd like to ride the bus for a while so my feet can warm up because it's snowing and that." And she gets on the bus, and the bus driver goes, well, why don't you have shoes? And she says, well, you know, I've got 8 kids, and they all needed shoes for school, and there just wasn't enough money left over. And she had a ragged coat on, and her dress was tattered. You could tell she wasn't wealthy by any means. And the kid, something happened, and the kid thought about it, and he said, you know, I've got these wonderful shoes that I got for basketball that I don't need now. And I can always get shoes. My parents will always buy me shoes. I don't ever have to worry about being shoeless. I will never have to worry about being shoeless. And so he took off his shoes and he offered them to the woman. And she put them on and she goes, oh, they fit perfectly. And he jumped down into a puddle of mud, icy mud, and walked 3 blocks home in the snow without his shoes. Now, the reason I tell you these stories is because they're examples of prayer. Whether we realize it or not, they're the examples of prayer. And what I'm going to talk about in this service is a little bit about why we pray, rather than so much the simplicity of prayer. But each of these examples gave a prayer in action. We sometimes forget that. We think that prayer demands that we have a certain set of rules, a certain idea of how we do it. And prayer isn't that. Prayer is who we are. Prayer is what we do. I'm going to read you a little something from a book we've been studying in self-mastery. It's a really wonderful book. It's called Living the Science of Mind by Ernest Holmes. And he has this great passage in here. Prayer in its truest sense is not a petition, not a supplication, not a wail of despair. It is rather an alignment, a unifying process which takes place in the mind as it reaches to its divine self and to that power which is greater than human understanding. In the act of such prayerful and reverent communion with God, one senses the unity of good, the completeness of life, and at times the veil of doubt is lifted and the face of reality appears. This consciousness, which has been referred to as the secret place of the Most High, is an experience rising out of conviction that God is all that there is, beside whom there is none other. Prayer then is a communion, and this communion pronounces life to be good. Prayerful communion ascends to that place where unity has not yet become variety, where the unformed one is ready to take any specific shape. In this act, communion and the individual become co-partners with the eternal and gives birth to time, space, and continuity. To me, that's a really powerful thing that he wrote, mostly because prayer is more than the structure that we oftentimes think of. Prayer isn't just a moment. It isn't a moment in which you sit down and okay, I'm going to pray now. It is that, but it's so much more. It's every thought we think. Every thought we think. Every word that we say. And it goes even beyond that to every action that we do. We choose or not whether to be in prayerful attention all the time. So prayer, and why we do it, is a natural outpicturing of this desire to commune. A natural outpicturing. If you think back to your earliest times, think back to when you were very young and you used to do that daydreaming. You used to imagine being in a different place or doing something different. You were in a state of prayer. You were setting an intention. You were moving to a new place in your consciousness. Now, you might have acted upon it later, or you might not have. I can remember as a very young girl of oftentimes thinking myself as traveling, as being married, as having children, and that set me up beautifully to travel, to be married, and to have children. I have lived in Japan and Germany, Colorado, Utah, California, Nevada, lots of different places. We've actually had like 36 or 37 homes. So I set myself up for that without ever realizing it. I didn't call it prayer at the time because I didn't know. But it was a prayer. It was setting an intention. So when you're out there in your world and you're looking around and you want to do something and you're wondering if what you're saying is in alignment with your prayer, with your goal or not, stop. Stop. When that car cuts in front of you and you want to tell that car off, or the driver rather, you want to tell the driver off, stop and think about what you're doing. Is that the intention you want to put out? Is that the prayer you want to give to the universe? Calling that guy a jerk? What's going to come back? Maybe somebody's calling you at the same time a jerk. In fact, the other driver is probably doing that. But we have to remember that every step we take is this prayer. We bring the passion forth, and that's what creates the movement in prayer. And if we don't have that passion, if we don't live our lives with intention, with that goal, then our lives seem to go this way, and then it goes this way, and then we have trouble with our in-laws, and we have trouble at work, then we have not enough finances, and our kids are just unruly and we can't handle them. It's because we've already set that up with our intention, with our thinking, with the prayers that we speak. And so we want to bring that back to the truth of who we are, to that communion with Spirit, to that place in which we stay in consistent prayer all the time. Why do we want to be in prayer? Because each one of us has that feeling that there's something that is greater than we are. Something that is moving through us that knows more than we maybe know. Something that is I don't know how to put it other than bigger than I am right this moment. And if I can open myself up to that, if I can have the passion, if I can see that and be that, then I have this wonderful life ahead of me. And it isn't just for the intention of having the wonderful life, it's the intention of giving the wonderful life also. Giving it as well as receiving it. Because I can't give what I don't have. I can't be what I've never experienced. I have to somehow move in that vein. And I think every child instinctively knows this. Every child, if, like that little girl, understands that prayer is not even thinking of it as prayer, but as compassion, as non-judgment, as just wanting to help, and recognizing there's got to be a way of doing it other than literally picking the food up and taking it to somebody. because that was out of her reach. But then we come to the young man who is able to actually do it in the physical form. So we move through prayer, through our thoughts, through our beingness, into this place of spirit, into this place of wholeness, into this place of well-being, so that each one of us can be prayer in action. In fact, the Bible tells us in let me see if I can pronounce it. Thessalonians 15, 16, 18, to rejoice always, to pray constantly, and to, I've got it written down here, and to give thanks in everything, Pray constantly. Now, do you think it would be in the Bible if it was impossible? I think a lot of things in the Bible are impossible. Excuse me. I just had that thought. Anyway, but the Bible always points. The Bible always points to the truth. And the truth is, we are prayer in action. We are living prayer, walking prayers, being prayers. But we have to become aware. We have to set that intention for what it is that we desire. We have to have a goal out there of some sort where everything can point to it. Because if we don't have a goal, we've lost something. We wander. So we have to have a goal. And if that goal is to become enlightened, which I've got news for you, you already are, whether you know it or not. We just don't always act that way. But if the goal is to become enlightened, if the goal is to become love, if the goal is to become joy, if the goal is to become peace, and I'm talking about having a goal that's bigger than the new car or the TV or the physical things we might need, that big goal out there, then it's easy to keep pointing at that, easy to keep looking at that and moving in that direction. And you know, there's so few people here. I want to do something, if you don't mind. So Cherie, if you'll come up here, and Barbara. Yeah, my students. And Barbara, if you would stand here. Okay.
I shouldn't have come at night.
Just stand right here. Cherie, if you would come stand over here. If you guys would come here. I got them too, so don't feel bad. So if you'll stand here, and you'll stand here, and you stand here. So Barbara here has an intention. She wants to have a specific thing. And you face straight to Cherie. Cherie is the goal. Okay. She's where she wants to be. She wants to move in this direction. So she has to have her intention facing the right way. She has to have her words and actions going the right way. She has to have her beliefs going the right way. Then she has a straight line so that she can see directly there. Now, what if one of these things are out of place? What if her words are doing oddball things? saying things, say some words.
I'm typecast in this role.
So you know, saying things like you're not worthy. Oh, can I really have this? Can I really get there? Do I have the time? And say beliefs aren't quite in line with it either. They're kind of going, oh, I really want that, but my belief is that I can't have it. And we'll just leave you right there. Can you see how she would get caught up in those? Her intention isn't straight to Cherie. And the others are facing odd ways, so she can't see directly to there. In fact, they might even end up being out of alignment and yelling at her in different ways so that she can't even see her goal. And this is what we do in our minds. So we need to then put everybody back in perfect alignment so that we can do this. Now we have guys may sit down. Thank you so much. So we have a way of doing this to help people learn this, and this is the 5 steps of treatment. And I'm just going to go briefly. The first step is, everybody, God is, I am, I give thanks, I receive, I accept, I give thanks, and I release. So those are very briefly the 5 steps, and I'll talk about them more next service. But the idea is those 5 steps are a formula, not a have to. They're a way of moving us out of the way we may have been praying to a different way of praying. The old way of praying may have been to a God out here, thinking that that's all there is a God out here. The other way of praying is knowing that God is in here. The first way of praying might have been with rote prayers or begging and bargaining. And the new way is recognizing, knowing the truth within. Once you get that structure, you can let go of it. The idea is just to become conscious. And along with that, we have to become conscious of our words, our actions, our thoughts throughout the day, and how we change those so that we can reach that goal, be in that place of understanding. So if you'll each join me, I'd like to now move into a treatment for that thing for each of us. So get comfortable. Take a nice deep breath. There is a wisdom in this universe, and that wisdom is what I call God. That wisdom is love, it's joy, it's peace, it's understanding, it's clarity. It's all those things that I want for myself. All those things that make the world go around. And it doesn't matter what I specifically call it. It just is. And it's bigger than any one individual. It's bigger than the world itself, the universe that I know of. It's the beginning and the ending. It's the up and down. It's the circle and the circumference. The center and the circumference. It is all that I know. And right now, I recognize that I'm one with that. That there is no division, there's no separation between me and any of that, except what I put in place. And because I've put it in place, I can change it. And so in recognizing this oneness, I recognize that I am also one with each individual here. I am one with the vastness of all that is. Even though I experience only a point at a time. And so I accept today, I accept that my words are prayers. And so I choose to watch my words. I choose to be careful. I choose to pick my words that I say to myself and to others. I know and I accept that my actions are also prayers. And so I'm careful about how I act. I take care of my body in a sacred way. I act throughout my day making choices that show me the truth, that allow me to move closer to my goal. And I know that as I pay attention, as I move through life, being more aware, being conscious of everything being a prayer, that I am filled to overflowing with love, with grace, with the wisdom of the universe. And nothing and no one can ever take that away, can ever remove it from me. For this, it becomes my truth. This becomes my willingness, my movement, my choice. And with this understanding, I am grateful for every moment. For every moment is a point of power. Every moment gives me a choice, a chance to say yes once again to where I'm going, to what I'm doing. I am so grateful, so grateful. I allow the passion and the movement to flow through me easily, knowing that this is so for each person. I graciously, lovingly give thanks and let it be so. And together we say, and so it is.
It's my pleasure and honor to have Reverend Kay speak on Prayer Made Simple.
I'd like to take just a few moments before we start. We've had several people make their transition this last week. Ken Hempy, who was in the choir, Charlotte Garland's mother, Sandy Babcock's mother, and Gloria Newton's mother, along with the people who were in the bus accident. So if you'll just join me in a treatment for a moment so that we can honor them. I know spirit is love, and that nothing ever dies or is born, nothing is ever lost or found, nothing is ever put aside, but is always contained within spirit, within the love, loving acceptance of spirit. And so right now, I choose to become an instrument of compassion and love, an instrument through which spirit sends and surrounds each person who has made their transition, and each family member and friend of those people. Surround them with love. Surround them with support. Surround them with caring. And I know that as the congregation comes together in this moment, that our love is viable, it is strong, it is physical, and it goes out to these people and allows the transition to be sweet, to be a remembrance of joy of each life, a remembrance of celebration for each moment of the other person's life. And I am grateful for having known some of these people. I am grateful for having known their children or their friends. I am grateful to be alive, knowing that I can give in such a wonderful way, and without judgment, without fear. And so as I let this go, I know that light and love surrounds each person, each friend, each family member with joy. And together we say, and so it is. Okay, well, welcome. Welcome. Hello. Anybody out there? Welcome. Thank you. Well, today we're talking about prayer made simple. And prayer is really simple. How many people here know how to breathe? Anybody? You know how to breathe? Know how to walk across the room? You know? Boy, we're in trouble. Anyway, prayer is as simple as that. Because I've got some really good news for you, and I've got some news that might not be so good. Which do you want first? I'll give you the bad news first. The bad news is that every word, every thought, every action that you have in your life is a prayer. And that might be kind of upsetting to some people. Now, the good news is every word, every thought, every action is a prayer. And that means that we can change our prayers moment by moment. We can change and we can become in alignment with whatever goal that we choose to have. We have the choice. And the reason why every word, every thought, and every action is a prayer is because with all our words, our thoughts, and our actions, we are telling the universe what it is that we desire, that we hold true in our lives. And in doing that, we are praying constantly. Now, the Bible, Thessalonians, I had a little trouble with that one, last one. It actually tells us, it says to rejoice always, pray without ceasing, in everything give thanks, and for this is God's will in Christ. So even the Bible, especially the Bible, tells us that we are to pray ceaselessly. It's hinting at a truth. When we become conscious that we are constantly in prayer, then our life starts evolving. It starts changing. We start bringing a passion into our lives that maybe we didn't have before. Maybe before we were caught in a rat's wheel where we just went around and around and around. And you just get by, and somebody cuts in on you, and you just, and you're at the you're at the store, and you're standing in line, and you're like, boy, I wish they'd hurry. I need to get someplace else. And we forget how powerful the moment is. This moment is the only moment that you have any power. The only moment. This moment is the only moment you can change your life. You can make it the way you want to be. Every moment we are born new has our power, and we die to it. And the next, and the next, and the next. So we get to choose. We get to change our lives if we want to. Or we can stay the same and see what happens. You know, I really like the word experiment. I like the idea of experimenting, of playing with life, rather than making it a concrete. You know, the old saying, you made your bed, now lie in it. I don't like that one. Because you know what? There's sometimes I've made my bed and I don't like it at all. I might want to put clean sheets on it. And so I get to take that, I get to change the sheets if I choose to. I don't have to stay there. I don't have to stay there. Now, I will tell you how important the word is Don Miguel Ruiz. You used to hear a lot about him from Dr. James Golden. But he had in his very first agreement in his book is being impeccable with your word. And he says the word is not just a sound or a written symbol. The word is a force. It is a power you have to express and communicate, to think, and thereby to create the events in your life. You can speak what other animal on earth can. The word is the most powerful tool you have as a human. It is the tool of magic. But like a sword, it has two edges. Your word can create the most beautiful dream, or your word can destroy everything around you. One edge is the misuse of word, which creates the living hell. The other edge is the impeccability of word, which will only create beauty, love, and heaven on earth. Now, you might be wondering what impeccable means. Impeccable means that you're conscious, you're fully aware of, you're paying attention to all the time. You're not letting it slip by. You catch yourself as you start to moan and groan in the morning as you're getting out of bed saying, oh no, another Monday morning. You catch yourself and you go, nope, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do something else. I'm going to go in a different direction. What a glorious morning this is. I know that today is going to be the best day of my life. And you switch it as soon as you recognize what's going on. You switch it because you're saying a prayer. You're saying a prayer in that moment. You're saying a prayer. Now, I want to tell you a little story I told in the last service of a prayer that looks a little bit different. And this story is about a young man who got on a school bus. And this young man was a teenager, and he had been in elementary school, and he was a basketball player, and he loved playing basketball. And he was the star of the team. But when he got into junior high, he was with all these other kids, and he hardly knew any of them. And he went to try out for that basketball team, and he didn't get on the list. And he was devastated. He was heartbroken. He didn't think that he was worth anything anymore if he couldn't be that star. He didn't know who he was, and he was on the bus with his friend on the way home, and he was just kind of moaning and groaning and into himself. You know how we get when we get that depressed, icky place that we sit in. And anyway, this wonderful woman gets on board the bus, and she is pregnant. She is ready to have that baby just about any time. And she gets on the bus, and the bus driver says, "Where are your shoes?" And she goes, "Well, I don't have any." And it's snowing outside, and it's icy outside. And she says, "I'd just like to get on the bus and ride around for a while, if you don't mind, so my feet can warm up." And he says, "Sure." And she gets in, and she sits down, and he goes, "Why don't you have any shoes?" And she says, "Well, I've got 8 kids, and they needed shoes for school, and I just didn't have enough money left over to get me a pair of shoes, too." In that moment, something happened. Something happened to this young man. He looked at his tennis shoes that he had gotten brand new so that he could play basketball, of which he wasn't going to be doing because he wasn't on the team. And he looked at those shoes and he thought to himself, I get shoes all the time. I don't have any problem with that. My mom and dad will pay for my shoes anytime I need them. And you know what? I will probably always have the shoes I need. And at that point, he took his shoes off and he gave them to the woman so that she would have shoes. And she put them on her feet and she goes, "Oh, they fit, thank you, thank you." And as he was getting off the bus driver said, "In my 20 years of driving a city bus, I have never seen such graciousness, such wonderful things." And as he jumped down, he jumped right into a puddle of ice and had to walk 3 blocks in the snow in his bare feet. But he didn't even feel it because he was so happy, so full of grace. Now that was a prayer. That was a prayer of action. That was a prayer of of changing attitude. That was a prayer for both the woman and for him. And everybody on that bus was affected. Everybody. And even the people in this room now are, from hearing that. That's a prayer. How often do we remember to pray? To remember how simple that prayer can be. That we don't have to get down on our knees. We don't have to formalize certain words to say a prayer. And yes, we do teach a form. And that is because many people don't know how to create a prayer. They've been taught how to do a rote prayer, where it's written out for them and they learn to memorize it and say it over and over and over again. Or they're taught to pray when they're very little and they pray in the form of, oh God, let me have that bike for Christmas. If you do, I promise that I will make my bed every day. You remember those instances when we did that, where I promise to be a good boy or girl. I promise that I'll help my mom. I promise I'll be good. Or we go in the other direction and oh God, please, I'm a good person. Won't you please just give me what I need? Because many people have been taught that God is out here and we're here. So there's this separation, this gap between us. Well, in here, we teach that God is right here. There's no gap. There's no separation. That God is within. And if God is within, that means that we are an expression of God. It means that everything that we do is an expression of Spirit. Everything that we say is an expression of Spirit. And all that mind chatter that tells you you're not worthy, that you're not supposed to have something, is a bunch of bull. It's time to get rid of it. Time to let it go. Let it go on its way. So earlier, the other service, just to give you an idea about how we can use treatment, our form of affirmative prayer, to align with where we want to go, we had a little demonstration. And I am asking for 5 people to please come up and help me. I've got 4. I need 1 more. Thank you, Linda. You can come up too, Nancy, if you want. We'll have 6. That's okay. So come sit here, or stand here. So, Diana, thank you. Diana is going to be the person with the intention. She's going to have what she wants. She wants to figure out what she wants in life, her goal. And she's going to be the person with her intention. So she's going to look this way. Linda is going to be the fulfillment of that intention, the goal, where she wants to be. Now, in order to get from there to there, we often have to work through such things as our words, as our beliefs, as our actions, as our self-talk, okay? So when those are all in alignment, if you can see me, when those are all in alignment, they're all facing that way, and we can see our goal and remember it. Now, what happens if one of those aren't in alignment? What happens if we're saying things like, you're a jerk? Or you have the belief, I don't deserve it. Or you, what were you? Actions. What if you're doing actions, you're not being kind to your neighbor? And what if that inner talk that you're doing is going, you're no good, you're no good. Wave your arms, you're no good that way. Now turn around more so you're facing Diana. What if you're waving your arms and doing all that self-talk and everything? She's not going to be able to see where her goal is. We can't even hear the goal. We forget about what it is. We might set it and it seems illusionary. So we have to get our words back in alignment. We have to get our beliefs in alignment. Get back there. Get back. There you go. And even the self-talk, actually, especially the self-talk, so that we can once again become in alignment. Thank you, everybody. I appreciate that. Now, there's a way we do that. And as I said, we teach a form of affirmative prayer. Very, very simple. We teach the kids this way. Remember, I'm the kids teacher. Teach the kids this way. I am. That's the head of the turkey. So, I mean, God is. Thank you. I'm ahead of myself. Anyway, God is. So we recognize that there's only Spirit, and you can call it any name that you choose to. God is not picky. God does not mind. You can call it life, you can call it experience, you can call it unlimited potentiality, you can call it energy, you can call it the tree of life. You can call it, there was one minister who used to call her sugar daddy. You can call it anything you want. Now the next step is unity. So it's where we recognize that we are one, see? One with Spirit. We aren't separate from that spiritual energy. Nothing inside of you is separate from that. Love is inside of you. Joy is inside of you. Peace is inside of you. You don't have to go find it. Amen. It's right here. Oops, excuse me, guys. It's right here. So what you can do is just open up to it. We don't have to look for it. The third part is acceptance. You're going to accept your good. You go to the grocery store. If you don't put the groceries in the cart and pay for them, you're not going to get them. They're going to stay on the cart. They're going to stay on the shelves. And they won't do you a bit of good. If you say, I want $1 million, but you don't believe you can have it, and you never do anything towards it, and you don't accept it, it's not going to do you a bit of good. You have to accept what you want. You have to claim it, own it, know it for yourself. The fourth part is thanksgiving. And this is really important. God doesn't care whether you say thanks or not, any more than a parent cares whether their son or daughter says thanks to them when you give them a gift. But boy, that parent feels it when they're using it, when they're enjoying it. It's the same thing with God, but we need to acknowledge it. We need to say thank you, because in the action of saying thank you, we open our heart up. We open up to the possibility that it's true for us. And the last part is releasing. And of course we want to release it, because if we don't, if we hold on to it, what happens? It gets strangled. It quits growing. It quits evolving. It's like that seed you put in the ground. If you pull that seed up to see if it's growing, it's not growing anymore. So you need to put it in the ground, leave it planted so that it can grow and evolve. After you learn the formula, you can let go of it. You can still use it, but the best thing about it is the best prayer is always the action. It's the movement. It's the day by day, moment by moment awareness of who you are in relationship to Spirit and those around you. It's recognizing that the ground you walk on is hallowed. It's recognizing that the stuff that you have in your house is sacred. It's recognizing that every person you meet is Spirit in reflection to you. Spirit looking back at you. Even when they're being nasty, it's still Spirit looking at you. They may not recognize it, but you can recognize it. And when you can recognize it, when you actually start recognizing it, half the time it lets them have that experience of recognizing it. It's amazing. You know how hard it is for somebody to argue with the words, I love you? It really is. Or I care about you. Or I'm sorry this has happened. How can I help? It's really hard to argue with those words, isn't it? And we forget to use that. We forget that we are that loving embrace. We are love, created to give love and receive love. Amen. That is what we are. That is where we are going. So I'd like each person to, if you would care to join me in a prayer, a formalized prayer. You don't have to get on your knees. I promise you that. Just sit relaxed and know with me that Spirit is life. It is the bigness of the world. It is the passion that flows in and through each and every one of us that allows us to get up in the morning and greet the day with joy. It's the passion that we experience when we see the baby that's newborn in the cradle. It's the passion when we see our significant others smile on their face. It's the passion when we see one person being kind to another, or somebody getting accepted for something, and we just feel so good for them, so wonderful. And that passion is not something that is distant, but it's right here, right now, within me, as me, and for me. And it is the same for each person in this room. That passion resides right within. And as I open up and allow it to flower into the greatness that it is, I recognize that every word that I say is a prayer. And I choose to pick my words carefully. I choose to pay attention to what I am saying, whether it's mentally inside or it's outward to another. Every action is a prayer. Where can I serve that? Well, how can I be a greater expression of that prayer? How can I move into that loving space to give prayer its truth, its beingness? Today, I open my eyes. I choose to look in a new way at life around me. I choose to take in the Spirit in whatever form it presents itself. I move out of this center today in a way that is brand new, with a light around me, with love in my heart, to embrace the world, embrace the changes that take place, embrace who we are. I am a magnificent being, as is everybody here, and I am thankful for that. And as I release it, I know this is done, and together we say, and so it is. Thank you.